The Drake Hotel ballroom smelled like truffle butter and money. I balanced a tray of champagne while a crumpled hospital bill dug into my apron. $18,642 past due. Mom was on the oncology floor, asleep under her own worn blanket, and I had promised her I'd be back before midnight. Table 7 was the quiet VIP corner. That's where Grant Holloway sat alone, Chicago's logistics billionaire, famous for buying dying factories and turning them into headlines. Tonight he wore a plain navy suit, no entourage, just a tired posture that didn't fit the room. "Be invisible," my captain muttered as he shoved me forward. "Yes, sir." I poured sparkling water, kept my eyes down until his sleeve slid back. On his left wrist was a small tattoo, two oak leaves twisted into a knot, a tiny compass at the center. Faded but unmistakable. My throat closed. My mother had the same tattoo in the same place. When I was a kid, I'd traced it with my finger and begged for the story. She always gave me the same answer. Love makes promises. Sometimes they get lost. I should have walked away. One complaint from a VIP and I'd lose the only job giving me cash for copays and gas to the hospital. But my mouth moved anyway. "Sir, I'm sorry, that tattoo. My mother wears the same one. What does it mean?" Grant's eyes snapped up. "Your mother's name," he said, like he'd been holding his breath for 30 years. Guests at the next table turned. My captain's smile hardened. "Carol Price," I whispered. Grant's whiskey tumbler slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble. Amber and ice sprayed my shoes. The captain hissed loud enough for donors to hear, "Are you trying to embarrass us? Megan?" I knelt to gather the shards, cheeks burning as a few people chuckled politely, like I was the entertainment. Above me, Grant stood so fast his chair scraped. "Where is she?" he asked, voice cracking. "In the hospital," I said. "Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. He didn't explain. He just walked out, straight past the security camera over the ballroom doors. A gray-suited man grabbed my elbow in the service hall, showed me a security still of Grant mouthing Carol, and said, "Miss Price, take me to her room. Now. My name is Megan Price, and I'm 44 years old enough to know that miracles don't usually wear navy suits." By midnight, I was back on the 11th floor of St. Anne's, trading perfume and jazz for antiseptic and the steady beep of monitors. I washed my hands until they stung, and then slipped into room 1116 with my diner tote and the night shift meal I'd saved. Half a turkey sandwich, 2 salt packets, and the pudding Mom liked. Carol Price slept with her mouth slightly open, gray curls fanned on the pillow. The chemo had taken her appetite, her strength, and most of her patience, but not her pride. Even unconscious, her fingers kept worrying the frayed edge of her wedding ring. Dad's ring, really, the one she wore on a chain after he died. I tucked the chain back under her gown and smoothed the blanket like I was making a bed for a child. I should have told her about the tattoo. I should have told her about the glass shattering, the donors staring, my captain calling me a problem. Instead, I checked her chart, read the numbers I already knew, and whispered, "I'm here. I'm still here." My phone buzzed. A message from Rick Mallory. "You cost me a table tonight. Don't bother coming in Saturday unless I say so." Another buzz, an email alert from collections. Final notice. I swallowed hard and opened my banking app. $32. Enough for gas, not enough for the copay due at dawn. Every week I skipped lunch, sold my plasma twice, and lied to Mom that the parking fee was free, just so her pills could stay on schedule. I walked to the nurse's station to ask about Mom's pain meds. The clerk, Janine, nodded toward the hallway. "Some guy in a gray suit was looking for you," she said. "Said he had business with Carol Price. He's not family, but he knew her date of birth." My stomach flipped. The same gray suit from the service hall, the same urgency. Back in the room, Mom stirred, eyes fluttering. "Meg?" she rasped. "Yeah, did someone call me Carol?" I froze, my hand on the curtain. Because in the glass reflection of the door, I saw a figure stop outside. tall, broad-shouldered, and wearing a navy suit. And the air in the room changed, like the past had finally found our address. The gray-suited man introduced himself as Thomas Beck, but he didn't do it like someone asking a favor. He did it like someone filing paperwork. He showed his driver's license, then a laminated bar card, then a business card with thick paper and a downtown address. Hospital security logged his name, made a copy, and still looked nervous when he said, "I represent Mr. Grant Holloway." I kept my voice low. "My mother is not taking visitors." Thomas's eyes flicked to the closed door of room 1116. "She asked for you. I'm not here to upset her. I'm here because time is the enemy." Time. That word hit harder than any diagnosis. Mom's oncologist had said it the same way, like a clock with teeth. "What does he want?" I asked. "To confirm a connection he believes is real," Thomas said. "And to make sure Carol Price gets care without delay. But I can't discuss medical decisions without your consent." He held out a single-page form. Authorization to release information. My hands shook. I'd signed so many forms lately that my name felt like a debt, too. The last one had been a payment plan for medication we couldn't afford. "I don't even know him," I said. "You didn't know him yesterday," Thomas replied. "He didn't know where to find her yesterday. Tonight changed that." Behind us, the elevator chimed. A family stepped out carrying balloons, their laughter slicing through the hallway like a reminder of what we were losing. I stared at the form. If this was a scam, I could wreck the little stability we had left. If it was real, refusing could cost Mom her last chance at treatment. My phone buzzed again. "Rick, don't play hero. You're replaceable." Under that, another message from my landlord. "Rent is 6 days late, Megan." I swallowed the taste of metal. "If I sign, you don't touch her without me." Thomas nodded. "Agreed. I also need her full legal name, date of birth, current physician, and diagnosis." "You're asking for everything," I said. "I'm offering everything," he answered, and slid his tablet toward me. On the screen was a freeze frame from the gala security camera. Grant's face turned toward me, mouth forming one word. "Carol." My breath caught. Thomas leaned closer and said, "He's in the lobby right now, and he brought a private transfer team with a bed already reserved for her tonight." Mom's eyes stayed on the doorway, unfocused, like she was watching something no one else could see. The monitor beside her ticked out a steady rhythm, and each beep felt like a reminder that we didn't get to pause life while we figured out the past. "Megan," she whispered, "what did you say his name was?" I pulled the curtain tighter. "Grant Holloway. He was at the gala, his lawyer is downstairs, and... Mom, he has your tattoo." Her hand flew to her left wrist, instinctive, protective. For a second she looked less like my mother and more like a frightened girl caught sneaking out. "No," she breathed, "that can't be him." "You know him." It wasn't a question anymore. Carol swallowed, throat working, because I knew a boy named Grant. A lifetime ago. Before your father. Before everything got heavy. I sat on the edge of the chair, knees pressed together. "Tell me the truth, all of it." She turned her wrist over, exposing the faded knot of oak leaves and the tiny compass. "We got them at a county fair in Indiana," she said, voice thin but clear. "He said the compass meant, 'I'll find my way back.' I said the oak meant, 'I'll stay rooted until you do.' We were young and dumb and sure love was enough." My chest tightened. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because love didn't pay rent," she said, almost angry. Then her eyes softened. "And because I thought he left on purpose." She pointed toward the bedside table. Under her Bible was an envelope I'd never seen, corners worn to fuzz. "I wrote him," she said. 3 letters. I mailed them. No answer. Then I stopped, because I couldn't keep bleeding hope. I slid the envelope out. The return address was smudged, but the name was there. Grant Holloway, Dated 25 years ago. Did he know about me? I asked, my voice breaking. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes. I didn't know I was pregnant when I last saw him. By the time I did, I couldn't find him. And then your dad, God rest him, he stepped in and raised you like gold. A knock cut through us. Nurse Patel peeked in, tense. Ms. Price, there's a Mr. Holloway asking to come up. Security says he's cleared. Mom gripped my fingers with surprising strength. Let him in, she whispered. And when the elevator dinged outside our door, I realized my mother was about to face the one name she'd been outrunning for decades. Grant Holloway didn't look like the magazine covers when he stepped into room 1116. Up close, he looked human. Tired eyes, a bruise-colored shadow under his jaw, hands that hovered like he was afraid to touch anything fragile. Thomas came in behind him, quiet as a shadow, while Nurse Patel checked the visitor badge and nodded once, as if the hospital itself had decided this was allowed. Mom sat straighter, pulling the blanket up to her collarbone. I could feel her shaking through our linked fingers. Carol, Grant said. It wasn't loud, it was reverent, like a prayer he hadn't spoken in years. She tried for sarcasm and failed. You finally found me, she whispered. Grant's throat bobbed. I tried, I swear I tried. His gaze dropped to her left wrist. You kept it. Mom turned her arm slightly, exposing the oak leaves and compass. Man, it was easier than pretending you never happened. Grant pushed his sleeve back. The matching tattoo sat on his wrist like a scar that refused to fade. He exhaled, and for a second his shoulders sagged, as if he'd been carrying something too heavy for one life. I got your letters, he said suddenly. Not when you sent them. Years later, a storage box. The postmark was still there. He looked at me, confusion and panic mixing. They mentioned Indiana, the fair, the compass. My mouth went dry. Then why didn't you come? Because when I read them, you were already gone, he said. The address was dead. I spent months searching. Then my company exploded, and I kept searching anyway. Private investigators, old friends, church registries. Nothing. Mom's eyes filled. I thought you chose to forget me. I never married, he said. I'm voice breaking. I never had a family. I only had the idea of you. The room felt too small for all that regret. I stepped back to the sink, pretending to rinse an empty pudding cup so they could breathe without me watching. Grant turned toward me. Megan, right? I froze. Yes. His eyes tracked my face like he was doing math he didn't want to do. Thomas cleared his throat softly, a warning. Grant swallowed. How old are you? Tell me your birthday, Grant said, and the way his hand trembled told me he already knew what the answer might destroy. Grant's question hung in the room like the smell of bleach, sharp, impossible to ignore. Mom watched my face, then his, as if she already knew what math he was doing. March 9th, 1981, I said. Why? Grant went pale. He looked at Thomas, who gave the smallest nod, and then back at me. St. Anne's, he murmured. This hospital. My stomach clenched. Lots of people are born here. Mom's fingers tightened around the blanket. Megan, she warned, voice thin. Grant took a slow breath. Carol, when did you go to Indiana? The fair. Mom's eyes filled, and in that instant I understood. He wasn't guessing. He was remembering. Summer of '80, she whispered. After my first year at community college. I was 20. Grant closed his eyes. And you left Chicago when? Mom's chin lifted, pride fighting fear. January, '81. My dad got sick. I went home to help my mother. She swallowed. I found out later. Later? The word slammed into me. I turned to her. Later. What? She looked straight at me and the room went silent, except for the monitor. I found out I was pregnant, she said. With you. My knees went weak. I grabbed the bedrail, metal cold under my palm. No, Mom, Dad, Your dad raised you, she said quickly. He loved you. He signed your school forms, taught you to ride a bike, buried your first dog. He is your father in every way that counts. Her voice broke. But biology, I never knew how to tell you without breaking you. Grant's hands trembled. He didn't step closer. He just stared at me like he was afraid I'd vanish. I didn't know, he said. I swear to God I didn't know. Anger flashed hot, then burned into confusion. 24 years of hospital bills, 2 jobs, and a dead father? Had all of it been shaped by one missed address? Thomas cleared his throat. Miss Price, there's a legal and medical way to confirm this. A simple DNA test. We can have the nurse draw it tonight. No press. No paperwork beyond your consent. Mom reached for my hand. Meg, you don't have to. I looked at Grant. His eyes were wet. Please, he whispered. Before I could answer, Rick Mallory's number lit up my screen again. This time with a voicemail titled Final Report, and my heart told me he'd just set a trap. I stepped into the stairwell and played Rick Mallory's voicemail on speaker because my hands were already shaking. Megan Price, his voice purred. You don't get to interrogate VIPs and embarrass me. You spilled liquor, you harassed Mr. Holloway, and now you're a liability. Turn in your apron tomorrow at 9. If you want a reference, you'll sign my incident statement. If you don't, I'll make sure every hotel in Chicago knows your trouble. The message ended with a soft laugh that made my skin crawl. Behind the metal door, the oncology floor sounded normal. Carts rolling, nurses calling out vitals, like my world hadn't just tilted again. I looked down at my own wrist. No tattoo. Just a faint red mark from the bracelet they'd given me at admission, the kind that said visitor like a warning label. I called him back. He answered on the first ring, too pleased. Rick, you can't do this, I said. My mom is dying, he cut in, loud enough that someone on the landing paused. Yes, you've told everyone. It doesn't buy you class. Then he lowered his voice. You want to keep working? You'll stop talking to billionaires like you belong at their table. My cheeks burned. A month ago, I'd begged him for extra shifts. He'd smiled and said, family first, then docked my tips anyway. I didn't do anything wrong, I whispered. You did something stupid, he snapped. And stupid girls learn consequences. I hung up before he could hear me cry. Then I wiped my face, squared my shoulders, and walked back toward Mom's room, because she needed my calm, not my panic. Grant and Thomas were waiting in the hallway. Grant's eyes searched mine. What happened? Work, I said. It's fine. Thomas didn't look convinced. Your employer is the Drake. Their security system is vendor managed. Footage can be altered. That word, altered, landed like a threat. Can they fire me? I asked. They can try, Thomas said, but they can't rewrite what happened. A door down the hall opened, and I caught a glimpse of a hospital security officer speaking into a radio. We'll pull the lobby clip, he said, and the ballroom exit. My breath caught. Cameras, proof. Real, early, undeniable. And I started toward the elevator, toward the one place Rick controlled. As the doors opened, I saw Rick in a suit I'd never seen him wear, leaning into the Drake's security office and whispering, Delete the door camera from 11:12 p.m. now. The Drake service elevator led out behind the ballroom, a hallway lined with framed photos of donors and men who owned the city. I kept my head down, badge flipped inward, and followed the sound of Rick's voice. He stood half inside the security office, one hand on the door, the other holding his phone like a weapon. The monitor glow painted his face an ugly blue. 11:12, he said. Doorcam, ballroom exit. It needs to disappear before corporate asks questions. A young technician in a polo shirt glanced at the screen, then at Rick's gold tie bar. Sir, there's an audit trail. Rick leaned closer. Then you'll say the system overrode it. You want this job, right? My stomach turned. I slid behind a column, thumb shaking as I opened voice memos. The red dot blinked. I held my breath. Rick's voice sharpened. And pull the incident report. I'm writing her up for harassment. Make it clean. The technician hesitated. Name? Megan Price, Rick snapped. Server. She's been unstable for weeks. Put that. I backed away before the floor creaked. My heart pounded so hard I tasted it. At the end of the hall, a housekeeping cart sat unattended. I ducked beside it and texted Thomas Beck. Rick is ordering security to delete 11:12 p.m. exit footage. I have audio. Preserve everything. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. No reply. My hospital bracelet scratched my wrist. I pictured Mom alone in 1116. If Rick erased that clip, he could ruin me with one lie. I needed proof right now. I forced myself to do something smarter than panic. I walked to the employee office where a printer hummed and a clipboard hung on the wall. Rick's incident statement was already there. Fresh ink, time-stamped 12:07 a.m., describing me as aggressive and possibly intoxicated. He'd planned it before I even left the ballroom. I took a photo. Then I noticed the footer. Security request ID number DKE-2219. Back in the hallway, the technician stepped out, eyes wide. He saw me, then looked away like he hadn't. But his hand brushed his pocket, and I saw the corner of a folded paper, something he'd printed. He walked past, whispering without moving his lips. They can't really erase it. Yes, the server keeps logs. He slipped the folded audit log into my tote and murmured, "Give this to the lawyer before Rick realizes what I did." By 6:30 a.m., the Drake's employee entrance smelled like coffee grounds and floor wax. I still had the folded audit log in my tote, tucked behind Mom's pudding cups, like contraband. The guard at the desk scanned my badge and frowned. "Captain Mallory asked for you," he said, pointing to the hallway. Rick waited outside the security office. Tie perfect, smile sharp. "There she is," he said, loud enough for the cameras. "Come on, Megan, let's get this cleaned up." He ushered me into a small office where a woman from HR sat with a laptop open and a blank face. On the table lay my apron, neatly folded, and a printed statement with my name already typed. Rick tapped the page. "Sign. You admit you caused a disturbance, spilled alcohol, and approached a guest inappropriately. In return, I mark you eligible for rehire." "I'm not signing a lie," I said. HR didn't look up. "Refusal will be noted," she murmured. Rick leaned back. "Then we do it the hard way. I file you as misconduct, no unemployment, no references. And I tell corporate you recorded inside a restricted area." His eyes slid to my tote. "Which is a termination offense, by the way." My stomach dropped. "I recorded you ordering a deletion," I said before I could stop myself. Rick's smile widened. "So you admit it. Great." He reached for the phone on the desk. "Security can escort you out, or—" He lowered his voice. "You can hand over whatever you stole and walk away quietly." "I didn't steal anything." He clicked his tongue like I was a child. "You're broke. Hi, your mother's dying. You think anyone will believe you over me? Over the hotel?" I pictured Mom's hand clutching her blanket. $32 in my bank account. A cancer ward that didn't pause for pride. Rick slid a second paper across the desk. A trespass notice. My name highlighted in yellow. "And one more thing," he said softly. "St. Anne's is one of our charity partners. I called their security chief this morning." He flipped the paper over. It was a printed email thread with hospital letterhead. Visitor privileges. Carol Price, room 1116. Restricted pending investigation. My knees buckled, and for first time I feared losing her more than him. Rick pointed at the final line, approved, and said, "Try getting back to your mother without my signature." The hospital lobby was already packed when I ran in, still wearing yesterday's black slacks and a visitor wristband that had started to curl at the edges. A line of families stretched past the gift shop. A little boy clutched a balloon shaped like a dinosaur, and his mother rubbed his back the way I used to rub Mom's when the nausea hit. I headed for the elevators. A security guard stepped into my path and held up a hand. "Miss Price?" "Yes," I panted. "My mother is in 1116. I need—" He turned a clipboard so I could see my name in bold. Restricted. "You can't go up," he said, not unkindly. "Orders from administration. Pending investigation." My face went hot. Investigation into what? Before he could answer, Rick Mallory appeared like he'd been waiting for this moment. He wore that same unfamiliar suit, hair slicked back, and he carried a folder as if it were a weapon. There she is," he announced, loud enough for the line to hear. "The employee who harassed a guest and recorded restricted hotel security." Heads turned. Whispers rose. A woman in scrubs stared at me like I was dangerous. "That's not true," I said, voice shaking. "He's lying." Rick smiled at the guard. "Hospital's a charity partner," he said smoothly. "We can't have disruptions. I sent the documentation." The guard's jaw tightened, caught between policy and decency. "Ma'am, please step aside." I tried to look past him up the hallway as if I could see through walls to Mom's room. My chest squeezed. If I couldn't get upstairs, Mom would wake alone, wondering why I'd abandoned her. A nurse wheeled an IV pole by and murmured, "That's her? The one who made the billionaire leave?" Rick leaned closer to me. "Sign my statement," he hissed, like too low for others to hear. "And I'll email them to lift the restriction. Otherwise, your mother spends her last days without you." Something inside me snapped into cold clarity. I reached into my tote and pulled out the folded audit log and my phone. "I have proof you tried to delete the footage," I said, loud enough now. Rick's smile faltered, just a flicker. From the end of the lobby, Thomas Beck raised his bar card and said, "Security, freeze the cameras, because I'm filing an emergency injunction right now." Thomas Beck's voice cut through the lobby noise. "This is a formal notice," he said, holding up the stamped petition. "Any attempt to tamper with video evidence from the Drake Hotel will be treated as spoliation. I'm requesting immediate preservation orders." The security guard who'd blocked me earlier blinked, then looked at Rick. Rick's confident grin tightened, like a belt pulled one notch too far. "Sir," the guard said to Rick, "step over here." Rick raised his hand, still smiling. "Overreaction. She's a disgruntled server. I'm protecting our partners." "Partners don't threaten dying patients," Thomas replied, calm and deadly. "And they don't file false reports to bar a daughter from a cancer ward?" A woman in line gasped. Someone whispered, "Daughter?" Another voice, sharper, "She's trying to scam him." I felt every stare land on my skin. My ears rang. For a second, I wanted to sink into the tiled floor and disappear under the coffee kiosk. A teenage girl lifted her phone and started recording. The red light on her screen looked like a warning flare. "Ma'am," the guard said to me, softer now, "I need you to wait. Policy." I nodded. Because if I opened my mouth, I'd break. Rick leaned toward HR, murmuring. The HR woman typed fast, eyes dead. My phone buzzed. Employee portal, access denied. Then another. Direct deposit canceled. Contact payroll. It felt like he'd reached into my pocket and ripped out the last thread holding my life together. Thomas didn't miss it. He glanced at my screen, then at Rick. "Retaliation," he said. "Add it to the record." Rick's eyes flicked to my tote. "She's carrying stolen hotel documents," he announced, loud. "Search her bag." The guard hesitated. 2 more officers approached. I clutched the tote strap until my knuckles whitened. Thomas stepped in front of me. "Absolutely not," he said. "That bag contains evidence for counsel. Touch it, and you'll answer in court." In the standoff, the tote bumped my hip. The folded audit log slipped out. He fluttered once and landed near Rick's polished shoe. He moved fast, too fast. He stepped on it, heel pinning the paper to the tile, smiling as if nothing happened. I saw his heel grind the page, and I knew the technician's risk might have been for nothing at all. Then he leaned down and whispered, "If that paper disappears, your mother disappears from your life with it." Rick kept his heel on the paper, smiling as if he owned the tile. Thomas's gaze dropped, then sharpened. "Officer," Thomas said, "that document is evidence. Please retrieve it." The guard hesitated. Rick lifted his foot slowly, grinding once more for spite. The audit log was creased, but the printed lines still showed. Timestamps, user IDs, and one bold phrase. Requested deletion. Rick shrugged. "Looks like garbage to me." "It's not," I said, voice shaking. It's the server trail." He tried to erase the 1112 exit clip. A woman in scrubs whispered, "Oh my God." The teen with the phone leaned closer, filming Rick's shoe marks and my trembling hands. Rick turned to the lobby like he was addressing a board meeting. "This employee stole internal records and is now making accusations to extort a guest. Hospital policy should stand." Thomas didn't raise his voice. "I'm serving notice to the hospital and the hotel. Any retaliation against Miss Price or Carol Price will be part of the injunction." Administration arrived, 2 suits with St. Anne's badges, drawn by the commotion. One glanced at my mother's name on the clipboard and frowned. "Miss Price, your mother is a patient here. You are her listed caregiver." Rick cut in. "Not anymore. She's unstable. And we can't risk disruption." The administrator looked at Thomas's bar card, then at Rick. "Sir, this is a medical facility, not your dining room." Rick's smile faltered again. My phone buzzed. "Payroll notice? Final pay issued? $0 pending review." I swallowed a sob. Everything I'd worked for was being erased in real time. Thomas placed a steady hand near my shoulder. "Breathe," he murmured. "We're not losing this." The administrator motioned to the guard. "Escort Ms. Price upstairs," she said, firm. "Supervised if needed. And pull our lobby footage from the last 20 minutes. Now." Rick's face flushed. "You can't," a deeper voice answered from behind him. "Yes, they can." Grant Holloway had entered the lobby, eyes locked on Rick, jaw tight as steel. He didn't look at me first. He looked at the security guard and the cameras above the doors. Then he looked at Thomas. "I want copies," he said. "Hotel, hospital, all angles." The teen's phone swung toward him, and the lobby went quiet enough to hear my heartbeat right there. Grant stepped beside me and said, "I was the guest, and he's the one who tried to bury the truth." Grant's presence changed the air. The guard straightened, the administrator made a call, and my restriction vanished from the clipboard. I rode the elevator up with 2 officers beside me, not as a criminal, but as protection, while Rick's furious voice echoed downstairs. And my hands shook around Mom's ring. In 11:16, Mom stared at the door as if it might open into 1980. Grant waited outside, giving her dignity. Dr. Naomi Chen, her oncologist, stepped in with a chart and tired kindness. "Carol, your pain level?" she asked, then glanced at me. "Your visitor issue is resolved." "For now." Dr. Chen pulled the billing sheet from the folder I'd been hiding. "These balances are blocking the next step," she said. "There's an immunotherapy trial promising, but the hospital requires a deposit first." I felt my throat close. The number looked like a second diagnosis. I whispered, "I can't." "Today." Grant entered quietly, holding nothing but his own shame. "Let me handle it," he said to Dr. Chen. "All of it." I snapped, "No! My mother isn't a charity project." Mom flinched, then reached for my hand. "Meg," she breathed, "we've carried this alone long enough." Not out of pride. Thomas set my toad on the chair and slid out the audit log photo and the incident form. "We're stopping Rick," he said. "But we also need consent. If Grant pays, it must be documented." Grant's eyes stayed on me. "And a DNA test," Thomas added. "So this is lawful." I stared at Mom's ring under her gown and remembered Dad's hands fixing our porch step with borrowed nails. Accepting money felt like betrayal, but refusing felt like letting Mom die to protect my ego. I exhaled slowly. "One condition," I told Grant. "No press, no announcements. This stays private." Grant nodded like he'd been waiting his whole life to obey. Thomas made 2 calls. Within minutes, billing printed a receipt stamped paid, and the collections email stopped pinging my phone. Dr. Chen's shoulders softened. "Then we can start the trial screening," she said. Hope felt dangerous, but real again. Nurse Patel returned with a kit and a clipboard. "2 swabs," she explained. "It's quick." Mom held her wrist out, tattoo visible, and Grant mirrored her without thinking. I opened my mouth to agree when Patel flipped the page and I saw Rick's signature on the consent line from this morning. Nurse Patel's eyes narrowed as she traced the signature line. "This isn't yours," she said, tapping the looping R in Rick's name. "And it sure isn't the patient's. Consent for genetic testing has to come from Carol Price or her legal proxy." My stomach flipped. "He forged it," I said. "He threatened to keep me out of this floor unless I signed." Thomas Beck took the clipboard like it was evidence at a crime scene. "Stop," he told Patel. "Do not scan or upload anything else. We need the audit log for when this page entered the chart." Dr. Naomi Chen stepped closer, face calm but firm. "Carol, did you authorize anyone outside your family to sign for you?" Mom shook her head, her tears gathering. "No, I didn't even know there was a form." Patel slipped out and returned with a charge nurse and a hospital compliance officer, Ms. Whitaker, whose badge looked older than my rent receipts. Whitaker asked 1 question, then 2, then took Thomas's phone number and mine. "We locked the record," she said. "No further edits. Every access point is tracked." Thomas turned the page over and pointed at the timestamp stamp. 8:03 a.m. "That's after the gala," he said. "And after Rick Mallory emailed the hospital about partner relations, correct?" Whitaker's eyes sharpened. "You know about that." "I know he weaponized your charity connection," Thomas said. "Pull your inbox. Pull the attachment metadata. If his IP shows, it's falsification." Grant hovered near the doorway, in hands shoved in his pockets like he didn't deserve to breathe. "My security team pulled Drake backups," he said quietly. "The deletion request came from Rick's login. The system kept the trace." Dr. Chen exhaled. "Then we do this the right way." She set a fresh consent packet on the tray table. Mom signed with a trembling hand. "I signed as witness." Whitaker's radio crackled. She listened, then looked at me with sympathy. "Megan, there are police officers coming up. Someone reported you for stealing hotel security documents." My mother tried to sit up, panic flashing. Grant started forward, but Thomas held him back. "Let them speak first," he murmured. I could hear footsteps in the hall, the hard kind, and the elevator dinged like a verdict. For me, for Mom, for all of us. The door swung open, and 2 officers stepped in, with Rick right behind them, smiling like he'd already won. The 2 officers filled the doorway, hands resting near their belts. Rick stood behind them, smiling like a man who'd rehearsed this scene in a mirror. "Ma'am," the taller officer said, "we received a complaint from the Drake Hotel. Alleged theft of security documents and unlawful recording. Is that your bag?" I lifted my chin. "Yes, and it contains evidence that Captain Mallory tried to delete surveillance footage and forged consent in my mother's medical chart." Rick clicked his tongue. "She's hysterical. Her mother is very ill. I'm trying to protect our partners from a scam." Thomas Beck stepped forward, calm as stone. Officers, I'm counsel for the guest involved. Before you touch anything, and read this. He handed over the petition with the judge's stamp. Temporary restraining order. Evidence preservation. Anyone interfering with this bag is interfering with a court order. The shorter officer scanned it, eyes widening. Sir, this is effective immediately. Rick's smile slipped. That's overkill. He glanced at my mother's IV bag, then smiled as if innocent. Ms. Whitaker, the compliance officer, raised her tablet. Not overkill, she said. Captain Mallory's name appears on an unauthorized consent form uploaded at 8:03 a.m. from an external email. Our system logs IP addresses. The upload originated from the Drake's network. Dr. Chen folded her arms. And Carol Price did not authorize any genetic testing until minutes ago, in front of me. Rick's face flushed. You can't prove I... Grant's voice cut in from the hall. I can. He stepped into view, navy suit rumpled, eyes hard. I'm Grant Holloway. I was the guest. She did not harass me. Captain Mallory did. The taller officer straightened. Mr. Holloway, are you willing to make a statement? I already have, Grant said. My security team pulled the server logs, and I have footage backups the Drake can't touch. Rick lunged for the clipboard on the tray table. Thomas blocked him with one hand and held up my phone with the red recording screen. That's his voice, Thomas said. Ordering deletion. Mom's weak voice rose from the bed, steady with anger. Don't you dare use my dying body as your excuse. The officers exchanged a look, then one said, Captain Mallory, step into the hall. Rick swallowed, eyes darting, then locking on me with pure hate. If you think this ends here, he whispered, wait until the board sees what I'm about to send. Thomas moved us into a small consult room off the nurse's station, away from Mom's bed and the officers' radios. Grant stayed in the hall with Miss Whitaker letting the hospital breathe, while Dr. Chen closed the door and folded her arms like a judge. Thomas spread 3 things on the table. My phone with the recorded voicemail, the Drake audit log, and a printout of Rick's email thread to St. Anne's titled Partner Risk. Here's the timeline, he said. 11:12 p.m. Mr. Holloway exits the ballroom. Rick orders deletion. 12:07 a.m. He drafts a false incident report. 7:58 a.m. He emails the hospital asking for restrictions on you. 8:03 a.m. An unauthorized consent form appears in Carol's chart. All from devices tied to the Drake network. Ms. Whitaker tapped her tablet. Our system shows the upload came from an external address, but the sender used an internal partner token. That token was issued to one person at the Drake, Captain Mallory. Her voice didn't shake. He forged medical consent. That's criminal. I stared at the papers, numb. Why would he go that far? Dr. Chen answered before Thomas could. Because if you can't visit, you can't challenge the story. He isolates you, then controls the narrative. Thomas nodded. Rick's motive is simple: promotion and protection. The Drake board meets tomorrow to choose a new events director. A server scandal makes him look strong, unless the truth shows he manufactured it. And he didn't expect you to mention cameras, Thomas added. The moment he asked for deletion, the system flagged it. When he tried to drag the hospital into it, compliance opened an access audit. His own panic created the trail we needed right now. Grant stepped in, face tight. And the truth is worse, he said. He handed Thomas a flash drive. My team pulled the hotel's off-site backup. The deletion request failed, but it logged the attempt. It also shows Rick accessed VIP profiles and sold privacy packages under the table. My breath caught. So I was never the problem. Thomas looked straight at me. Megan, you're not powerless. He slid a notarized statement across the table, signed by the young technician. He's willing to testify. So is hospital compliance. So am I. Tomorrow, we walk into that board meeting with dates, logs, and witnesses. Thomas's phone buzzed with one new subject line. Board packet sent. And Rick's name was on it. I didn't sleep. Yeah, the hospital chair by Mom's bed dug into my back, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rick's email subject line flashing. Board packet sent. By sunrise, Dr. Chen had already started Mom on a new anti-nausea drip. She looked smaller, but when she squeezed my fingers, she whispered, "Don't let them shame you out of the truth." I stepped into the bathroom, stared at my tired face, and finally let myself say it out loud. I was done begging. Thomas met me in the cafeteria with a yellow legal pad and a plan. Rick sent a story to the Drake board, he said. We answer with facts, witnesses, and timestamps. No emotion, no chaos. Grant arrived 10 minutes later carrying a plain folder, not a checkbook. You decide what you want, he told me. I'll back you, but I won't buy your voice. That was the first time in 20 years someone rich had offered me respect instead of pity. We laid everything out in order, my voicemail, the audit log, the hospital access report, the technician's sworn statement, and the clip of Rick calling me unstable. Thomas highlighted 3 points in red. 1. He attempted evidence deletion. 2. He retaliated by blocking you from your mother. 3. He forged consent. Criminal. My hands stopped shaking when the facts lined up like train tracks. What about my job? I asked. My reputation? Thomas looked at me. You don't ask for your dignity back, he said. You take it. I went home for the first time in days, showered, and put on the only blazer I owned. The one I wore to Dad's funeral. I pinned Mom's faded family photo inside the pocket, on a reminder of who I was fighting for. At noon, Grant texted the board meeting room number and the security entry code. My stomach flipped, but I heard Mom's voice again. Don't let them shame you. I walked toward the Drake like I belonged there, folder under my arm, chin up. In the mirrored lobby, I caught my reflection. Tired, yes, but steady. When the elevator doors opened to the executive floor, I saw Rick already inside the glass boardroom, laughing with men in suits, and he looked up and froze. The moment I stepped through the door, Thomas said, Captain Mallory, we have the footage. The Drake boardroom was all glass and silence. The city spread behind it like a threat. Rick stood at the screen with a clicker, mid-laugh until he saw me. His smile snapped into something tight. This meeting is private, he said. You know, security. Thomas Beck lifted his hand. Counsel present, he said, laying a folder on the table. And so is the guest you claim was harassed. Grant walked in behind us, not grand, just certain. I asked her a question, he said. She answered. Captain Mallory is the one who turned it into a spectacle. A gray-haired board chair blinked. Captain Mallory, you sent us a report at 7 a.m. And I'm here to correct it, I said, voice steady. With evidence. Thomas plugged in a drive. The screen changed to a hallway camera angle. Rick in his suit, leaning into the security office. His words rang out clearly. Delete the door camera from 11:12 p.m. Now. A murmur swept the table. Rick slammed his palm down. That's edited. Thomas didn't flinch. Here's the server log that matches it. Request ID DKE-2219. Same timestamp. On same login. He slid copies down the table like dealing cards. Then a video call popped up. A young man's face filled the screen. Hotel technician Evan Morales, eyes wide. I printed the audit trail, he said. Captain Mallory pressured me. I refused to erase anything, but he tried. One board member leaned forward. You're willing to swear to that? Yes, Evan said. Under oath. Thomas turned to Ms. Whitaker from St. Anne's, seated at the end. Tell them what happened at the hospital. Whitaker's voice was crisp. Captain Mallory's partner token was used to upload a forged consent form into a cancer patient's chart. He attempted to restrict family visitation to force compliance. Our logs confirm the access points. Rick's face went waxy. He opened his mouth, but Grant cut in. I'm funding the hospital wing your hotel advertises, he said. If you think I'll ignore coercion, you don't know me. The chair stood. Captain Mallory, you are suspended effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Legal will cooperate with police. Rick's eyes flicked to me, then to his phone. His thumb moved fast. Several executives reached for their phones, alarm spreading across faces. Too late, he hissed, showing his screen. An email blast to every donor titled Megan Price Scam Exposed, scheduled to send in 60 seconds. Rick's thumb hovered over send like a trigger. The board chair, Mr. Dalton, snapped. Cut the room's Wi-Fi, now. An assistant rushed to the wall panel. The screen flickered as the network dropped. Rick laughed, breathless. Doesn't matter, cellular. He jabbed his phone again. Grant moved first. Yeah, Thomas. Thomas slid a copy of the restraining order across the table. Any mass defamation tied to ongoing litigation is contempt. And I have your sender ID from the packet email. Rick's eyes darted. You have nothing. I stepped forward, folder open, hand steady. You wrote that I was intoxicated. Here's my time card showing I clocked in at 3:02 p.m. and never left the floor. Here's the hallway footage of you ordering deletion. Here's the hospital log showing you forged consent to keep me from my dying mother. Dalton's mouth tightened. Captain Mallory, you are terminated for cause. Corporate counsel will refer this to the state attorney and the licensing board. Security, take his phone. 2 guards entered. Rick jerked back. Touch me, and you'll regret it. He tried to pocket the device, but one guard caught his wrist. The phone clattered onto the table, still showing the scheduled blast. 0041. 0040. Thomas reached, calm. Hold it down. Grant's security led, a woman with an earpiece plugged a cable into the phone and said, mirrored. We have the draft, headers, and recipients. He can't deny distribution. The countdown hit 0012. My heart hammered so loud I couldn't hear the air conditioner. Dalton barked, Stop it! The woman shook her head once. It's already queued. At 0000, my own phone exploded with notifications. Subject lines, donor replies. A stranger's message, scammer. My knees went weak, but I kept my chin up, staring at Rick as they cuffed him. Then Grant lifted his phone. Send the correction, he said. Within seconds, the board's official account pushed a statement. Captain Mallory suspended, evidence preserved, police involved. Knight Thomas attached the clip, the audit log, and Whitaker's compliance notice. Rick's smile died. He leaned toward me, voice venom. I still know where your mother sleeps. My phone rang from St. Anne's, and Dr. Chen's voice whispered, Megan, someone just tried to cancel your mother's trial slot. Right now. Dr. Chen met me at the nurse's station with her phone in hand. It wasn't the trial coordinator, she said. Someone spoofed our internal number and tried to release your mother's slot. Thomas was already dialing. Miss Whitaker pulled up the access log, fingers flying. Same partner token, she said. Same pattern. He's still pushing buttons from outside. Grant's security lead handed an officer a printed chain of custody sheet. He used his phone's hotspot to reach a donor list, then tried to reach the hospital portal, she explained. We captured the packets. The officer nodded once. We have probable cause, Mikey said, and turned toward the elevator. An hour later, Mom's screening resumed. Dr. Chen reviewed the labs, then smiled. Small, cautious, real. She qualifies, she said. We start infusion tomorrow. Mom exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. Thank you, she whispered to all of us, and I finally let my forehead rest on her blanket without fear. The next day, the Drakes board released a full correction. Rick Mallory terminated for cause, evidence preserved, law enforcement involved. They attached the clip of him ordering deletion and the hospital compliance notice. so nobody could pretend it was drama. My phone stopped buzzing with insults and started buzzing with apologies. St. Anne's reinstated my caregiver badge, and the administrator apologized in writing. The nurse who'd seen me shamed squeezed my shoulder and said, "I'm glad you fought." 2 weeks later, Thomas called with the outcome: felony charges for record falsification, attempted tampering, and coercion. A judge issued a no-contact order. Karma didn't arrive as lightning. It arrived as paperwork, handcuffs, and a courtroom schedule he couldn't charm. Grant paid the bills he owed to time, but he didn't ask to buy my forgiveness. He showed up. He listened. He sat with Mom through the nausea, learned Dad's name, and thanked him out loud. By spring, Mom's scans showed the tumors shrinking. Not a fairy tale, just more time earned. We moved into a small duplex near the lake, quiet and safe. I went back to school at night. Mom planted tomatoes. Grant came on Sundays with groceries and no promises he couldn't keep. Honor returns when truth is documented, boundaries are enforced, and the right people stand up. If you're drowning, don't let anyone isolate you. Ask for help. Keep receipts. Keep your name clean. And never sign away your voice. Duatren noi dung by content moi huang than. Haik sagjin, nhong tong jiep, hoak by hoak quantrong. Hai viet trong mot John van nangan bang tiangan kwang hai, tram tu kote ungdung vao kuak song. Hai jam bao noi dung truentai juak ingia sausak. Fu hop, voi joy tuong kangia. Kyo goi kangia thik. Chia se va junkie ken. Van dunka strish dan kwa chungia kaskin hulamot minchung. Chosu chualan de kangia. Viet bang tiangan. Nhong toimon viet tatun hien nu. Vaila kau chuyen junkie play. Naun hung ungoi bantuyet voi kwa chung toy bangwan kon, ojai jen go nai chu neo tuk suban, jang ojai jen go nai thi komot, geogi jojang. Cham jen trai tim banat thiomodad kai snau jo, va bai go toy kung banan hin nan. Voi goch nain hin, chin hasua cho that te tu nahian hu. Jang truk diaptro chuyen va hiu kan gian hat. And just like that, the story closes. And hey, my wonderful friends, are you still here with me? If you are, then something in this journey touched your heart in a real way. So let's look at it together from a healing, real-life angle. What Megan learned is something many of us learn the hard way. Dignity isn't given, it's protected. When someone tries to silence you, isolate you, or shame you, the most powerful thing you can do is stay grounded in truth. Document what happens, keep your receipts, and don't face it alone. What if the Stoics had a simple reminder that fits here? We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Not because pain isn't real, but because fear grows when we feel powerless. The moment Megan chose boundaries, evidence, and support, fear stopped driving her life. So if you're carrying a heavy burden today, remember, you're not weak for needing help. You're brave for asking. If this message speaks to you, please like, share, and subscribe, because your support helps us keep telling stories that restore hope, honor, and justice.